The morning started like any other Tuesday in Seoul. Hyun-woo Kim sat at his desk in the First Contact Protocol Center, drinking his third cup of coffee and reviewing reports about strange radio signals from deep space. The signals had been getting stronger for weeks, but nobody could figure out what they meant. At exactly 9:47 a.m., every computer screen in the building went black. Then the emergency alarm started screaming. Hyun-woo ran to the window and looked up at the sky. His coffee cup fell from his hand and smashed on the floor. Above the city, blocking out the sun, was the largest spaceship anyone had ever imagined. It was easily 50 kilometers long, covered in metal that seemed to bend light around it. Smaller ships surrounded it like angry wasps around their nest. "Sir, we need you in the main briefing room right now," his assistant called from the doorway. Her face was white with fear. The briefing room was chaos. People were shouting into phones, typing frantically at computers, and pointing at screens showing the same impossible sight. So-young Park, the director of military intelligence, was already there, calm as always, even though her hands were shaking slightly. "What do we know?" Hyun-woo asked. "Nothing good," So-young replied. "The ship appeared 15 minutes ago. No warning, no gradual approach. It just materialized. Our satellites show similar ships over every major capital city on Earth. Washington, London, Beijing, Moscow, Delhi, all of them." President Jinna Choi's voice came through the speakers from the emergency bunker in Bizon. "Hyun-woo, I need you to be ready for first contact protocols. If they want to talk, you're our voice." "Are we sure they want to talk?" asked Taemin Lee, the quantum physics researcher who had been called in as an expert. He was young, barely 30, but his work on faster-than-light communication had made him famous. "Maybe they're just here to to destroy us." So-young finished. "Yes, we've considered that." The lights in the room dimmed. Every screen turned the same deep blue color. Then a voice spoke, clear and cold, in perfect Korean. "Attention, species designation human, you will listen. You will not respond until given permission." Hyun-woo felt ice in his stomach. He had trained for this moment his entire career, but nothing could have prepared him for how alien the voice sounded, even speaking his own language. "We are the Galactic Hegemony. We have governed this galaxy for 12,000 of your years. We maintain order, we prevent chaos, we ensure survival." The voice paused. On the screens, star maps appeared, showing thousands of solar systems connected by glowing lines. 847 species have been cataloged and contained within their home systems. You are species number 848. Your expansion beyond this solar system is hereby forbidden. Taemin made a choking sound. "Contained? What does that mean?" The voice continued as if it had heard him. "Contained species are prohibited from interstellar travel, prohibited from colonizing other worlds, prohibited from contact with other species. These restrictions ensure galactic stability and prevent the conflicts that destroyed civilizations before our guidance." So-young was taking rapid notes. Her military training kept her focused even as the words sank in. Earth was being turned into a prison. Many species initially resist these necessary restrictions. Resistance is pointless. Those who attempt to violate containment protocols are subject to pacification measures. 847 species have learned compliance. You will be the 848th. The screens now showed images that made Hyun-woo's blood freeze. Dead worlds, burned cities, oceans turned to glass. The remains of civilizations that had dared to say no. You have 30 of your planetary rotations to acknowledge compliance with containment protocols. Send your response through the communication methods you are already using. We will monitor all transmissions. "Wait," Hyun-woo said, finding his voice. "We need to discuss this. We need to understand what you're asking." "There is nothing to discuss. Nothing to understand. You will comply or you will be pacified. This is not negotiation, this is notification. But our space program, our colonies on Mars and the Moon, will be abandoned. Your species will remain on your birth world. Any attempt to maintain permanent presence beyond your atmosphere will result in immediate response. Taemin stood up, his face red with anger. You can't just show up and tell us we're prisoners. We have rights. We have plans. We were going to reach the stars. The voice was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, it sounded almost amused. Rights are granted by those with power. Plans are meaningless without permission to execute them. You were going to reach the stars, but now you will not. This conversation is complete. The screens went black. The alien ship remained in the sky, motionless and threatening. The room erupted in arguments. Some people wanted to comply immediately. Others demanded they fight. A few suggested trying to negotiate to find some middle ground. There's no middle ground, So Young said quietly. They made that clear. We either give up everything that makes us human or they kill us all. President Jinnah's voice came through the speakers again. I'm calling an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. Every nation, every leader needs to hear this. Henwu, I need you to prepare a full report on what just happened. What about our people in space? Asked someone from the back of the room. The research stations, the mining operations, the colony preparations. Bring them home, Jinnah said. Now we bring everyone home. Over the next few hours, reports came in from around the world. The aliens had delivered the same message in every language to every government. 30 days to comply or face pacification. No exceptions, no negotiations, no appeals. Hyunwoo worked through the night, analyzing every word the aliens had said. 847 species contained. How many more had been pacified? How many civilizations had been erased from existence simply for wanting to explore? Taemin appeared at his desk around midnight, carrying 2 cups of coffee. I've been thinking about their technology, he said. The way they appeared, the way they translated our languages instantly, the way they knew exactly where to find. Yes, and they're powerful, but they're not gods. They made assumptions about us. They think we're like all the others, that we'll just give up when faced with superior force. Won't we? Hyunwoo asked. What choice do we have? Taemin smiled. But it wasn't a happy expression. We could surprise them. 3 days later, So-Young Park presented classified intelligence to the Global Defense Council. Deep space telescopes had detected the signatures of destroyed civilizations throughout the galaxy. Worlds that had been home to billions of beings. Now silent and cold. The galactic hegemony's idea of pacification was complete extinction. They don't just defeat species that resist, So-Young explained. They erase them. Every man, woman, and child. Every city, every farm, every work of art. They make it as if those civilizations never existed. The debate raged for weeks. Comply and live as prisoners forever, or resist and face total destruction. Some argued that survival was more important than freedom. Others said that life without the possibility of growth wasn't really life at all. President Jinnah listened to every argument, read every report, considered every option. The weight of humanity's future rested on her decision. Finally, she spoke to the world. 30 Earth days, she said. They gave us 30 days to decide between slavery and death. They assumed we would choose slavery, like 847 species before us. She paused, looking directly into the camera. They were wrong about humanity. The Global Defense Council meeting took place in an underground bunker beneath Geneva. Representatives from every nation sat around a massive table, their faces grim. Above them, alien ships continued to hover over major cities like dark clouds. That never moved. So-Young Park stood at the front of the room, pointing to a holographic display that showed dozens of star systems. Each one had a red mark through it. These are the civilizations we can detect that went silent in the past 1,000 years, she said. Advanced species that suddenly stopped all radio transmissions, stopped all space activity, stopped existing. The pattern matches what the hegemony told us about pacification. The German representative raised his hand. How can you be sure they were destroyed? Maybe they just learned to be quiet. So-Young touched a control, and the display zoomed in. On one system. This was the Kepler 442 civilization. Our deep space telescopes detected their industrial activity for 50 years. Cities, factories, space stations. Then 20 years ago, everything went dark in a single day. When we look at it now, we see nothing but dead rock. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. President Gina spoke from her position at the head of the table. So our choice is simple. Become prisoners on our own planet forever or be wiped out completely. There might be a third option, Temin Lee said from his seat near the back. He was the youngest person in the room by 20 years, but his quantum physics research had earned him a place at the table. What if we could expand without them knowing? The Russian representative laughed bitterly. Hide from aliens who can appear anywhere instantly? Impossible. Maybe not, Temin insisted. He stood up and walked to the display. Their ships use conventional faster-than-light travel. We can detect the energy signatures, but our quantum tunnel technology works differently. It doesn't create the same energy patterns. Dong Haiyan Yu, the captain of humanity's newest deep space vessel, leaned forward. You're talking about ghost ships, vessels they can't track. Exactly. Small colonies, hidden bases, spread across the galaxy. If we're careful, if we're smart, we could build a secret civilization. The Brazilian representative shook her head. And then what? Hide forever. What kind of life is that? Hayoung Seo, the bioengineering specialist, had been quiet until now. A life with hope, she said. My team has been working on adaptive biotechnology. We could survive on worlds that don't look habitable, worlds they wouldn't think to check. Jinsert. Nam, who coordinated resistance cells during the resource wars, smiled grimly. I've seen what happens when people have something to fight for versus when they have nothing to lose. Give humans hope and they become dangerous. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued for immediate surrender. The alien ships were too powerful, the risk too great. Others wanted to fight directly, to show humanity wouldn't bow down to threats. A direct fight would be suicide, So Young said. They've done this 847 times before. They know how to break resistance, but they don't know how to break something they can't see. Hyun-woo Kim had been listening quietly, taking notes. Finally, he spoke. I've been analyzing their language patterns, their behavior. They're bureaucrats. They follow procedures, check boxes, file reports. They told us about 847 contained species like it was a routine number. So? Asked the Japanese representative. So they're not looking for hidden threats. They're looking for compliance or obvious resistance. If we appear to comply while secretly doing something else, their procedures might not catch it. President Jinnah called for a recess. The delegates broke into small groups, arguing in whispers. Some formed alliances, others made threats. The future of humanity was being decided by politics and fear. During the break, Taemin found himself cornered by several military officials. Your quantum tunneling technology, the American general said. How many ships could use it? Right now? Maybe a dozen small vessels? The power requirements are enormous, and we only have a few quantum cores? Not enough for a real colony effort, the general said dismissively. It's enough for a start, Dong Haiyan interrupted. 12 ships could carry maybe 1,000 people total. Find the right worlds, establish basic settlements, then build more ships using local resources. Hayoung joined the conversation. My bioadaptation systems could reduce the resource requirements dramatically. Instead of terraforming entire worlds, we adapt the people to the environment. Faster, cheaper, harder to detect. The general looked skeptical. You're talking about changing human biology, making us into something else. I'm talking about making us into something that can survive, Hayoung replied. The hegemony expects humans to need Earth-like conditions. If we don't, we can hide in places they consider uninhabitable. When the session resumed, the arguments became more intense. The Chinese delegate pointed out that their space program was the most advanced, so they should lead any secret expansion. The Americans argued, that their military technology was essential. The Europeans insisted that their industrial capacity made them indispensable. "You're all missing the point," Junseok said loudly, interrupting the bickering. "This isn't about which nation leads. This is about whether humanity survives as a free species. We either work together or we all die together." So Young projected. "New images on the display. I've been monitoring the alien ships. They're not doing anything except watching. They're waiting for our answer, but they're also studying us, learning our patterns, our weaknesses, which means we need to give them an answer they expect," Hyun-woo said. "Public compliance while we secretly prepare for something else." The vote was close. 67 delegates in favor of the secret expansion plan, 42 against, 15 abstaining. It wasn't overwhelming support, but it was enough. President Jin stood up. "Then it's decided. Publicly, we will appear to comply with the hegemony's demands. We'll recall our people from space, shut down our obvious space programs, behave like good prisoners." She paused, looking around the room. "But privately, we begin the greatest undertaking in human history. We will seed the galaxy with hidden colonies. We will adapt, survive, and grow in the shadows until we're strong enough to stand in the light." Taemin felt his heart racing. "When do we start?" "We already have," So Young said. 3 ships launched yesterday using your quantum drive technology. Small, fast, invisible to their sensors. They're carrying skeleton crews to establish the first hidden bases." The room erupted in surprised voices. Several delegates demanded to know why they hadn't been informed. Others wanted to know where the ships had gone. "The fewer people who know the details, the better," Jinnah said firmly. "Each of you will return to your countries and begin the public compliance. Recall space missions, shut down launch facilities, make it look like we're giving up." "And the real work?" asked the German representative. "The real work happens in secret. Selected volunteers, hidden facilities, ghost ships that officially don't exist. We'll build a shadow civilization while the hegemony thinks we're defeated," Dong Hyeon smiled. "How long do we have before they expect an answer?" 18 days, Henwoo said. 18 days to convince them we're beaten while actually beginning the largest expansion in human history. As the delegates prepared to leave, Hayoung approached President Jinnah. "Ma'am, there's something else. My bioadaptation research has revealed something interesting about human genetics. We're more adaptable than most species, more resilient. It's like we were designed for survival in impossible conditions." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe the hegemony picked the wrong species to contain. Maybe, for the first time in 12,000 years, they're about to learn what happens when they threaten something that refuses to die." Dong Hyeon-yu stood on the bridge of the ship called Silent Runner, watching stars that no human had ever seen before. The quantum drive had carried them 47 light-years from Earth in just 6 hours, a journey that should have taken decades with normal technology. "Captain, we're approaching the target system," called Soo-jin Kang from the navigation console. She was young, barely 25, but her skills at reading star charts were better than anyone twice her age. 3 planets, all within the habitable zone. "Any signs of hegemony presence?" Dong Hyeon asked. Woo Jin-ho checked his sensors carefully. He was the best scout humanity had ever trained, able to detect alien technology from incredible distances. "Nothing, Captain. The system is completely empty. No ships, no stations, no artificial signals at all." Dong Hyeon smiled. This was their 7th system in 2 weeks, and like the others, it had been ignored by the hegemony. They seemed to only care about systems with obvious value, planets that looked exactly like the homeworlds of known species. "Take us to the 2nd planet," he ordered. Hayoung's bioscanner showed it has the best potential. The planet was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Pink skies, purple oceans, and continents covered in silver vegetation that moved like it was alive. The air was too thick with nitrogen, the gravity was too strong, and the radiation from the red sun would kill an unprotected human in hours. "Perfect," said Hayoung SEO through the communications link from her laboratory ship. My bioadaptation systems can handle all of these problems. Give me 6 months, and I'll have colonists who can breathe this air and survive this radiation. Mykyung Lim was already setting up the quantum communication relay that would let them stay in contact with Earth without the hegemony detecting their signals. The technology was Taemin Lee's greatest achievement, allowing instant communication across any distance without creating the energy signatures that normal faster-than-light communication required. How many people can the first settlement support? Dong Hyeon asked. Maybe 50 to start, Sujin replied, checking her calculations. We can expand from there, but we need to stay small until we're sure the adaptation process works. Within days, they had established humanity's first secret colony. They called it New Bisan after Sujin's hometown. The colonists lived in underground shelters while Haeyoung's bioadaptation treatments slowly changed their bodies to survive on the surface. The process was not pleasant. The volunteers had to endure weeks of genetic therapy that made them sick, tired, and sometimes delirious. But slowly their lungs learned to process the thick atmosphere. Their skin developed natural protection against radiation. Their muscles adapted to the heavy gravity. It's working, Haeyoung reported to Earth. The first generation of adapted humans can survive on the surface for hours without protection. Their children will be able to live here naturally. Back on Earth, things looked very different. President Jinna Choi had given the hegemony their official answer right on schedule. Earth would comply with containment protocols. All space missions were being cancelled. All colonies were being abandoned. Humanity accepted their role as a contained species. The alien ships watched as humans dismantled their space stations and brought their people home from Mars and the Moon. Everything appeared exactly as the hegemony expected. Another species had accepted defeat rather than face extinction, but in hidden facilities around the world, the real work continued. Taemin Lee's teams built more quantum drives. Haeyoung SCO prepared bioadaptation treatments for thousands of volunteers. Jun Seok Nam coordinated the selection of colonists, choosing people who could survive in isolation and keep secrets. Woo Jin-oh became humanity's greatest explorer, using stealth ships to map safe routes through space. He learned to avoid hegemony, patrol patterns, to hide in nebulae and asteroid fields, to move like a ghost between the stars. The key is thinking like prey, not predators, he explained to other scouts. The hegemony expects species to either submit or fight. They don't expect us to run and hide. Their patrols look for obvious threats, not shadows. 6 months after New Bisan was established, 3 more colonies followed. New Seoul on a frozen world where humans learned to survive in perpetual winter. New Jeju on a water world where the colonists lived on floating cities. New Daegu on a desert planet where the adapted humans needed almost no water to survive. Each colony was different, requiring new adaptations, new solutions. Haeyoung's bioengineering became more sophisticated with each world. She learned to give humans gills for underwater breathing, enhanced vision for dark worlds, stronger bones for high-gravity planets. We're not just spreading across the galaxy, she told her research team. We're becoming something new, something that can survive anywhere. The colonies stayed small and hidden, but they were productive. Each settlement manufactured quantum drives, bioadaptation equipment, and stealth technology. Within a year, humanity had the resources to establish new colonies faster than ever before Sujin Kang became the administrator of New Bisan, coordinating with the other colonies to share resources and knowledge. Her organizational skills turned a group of desperate refugees into a functioning civilization. The hegemony thinks in terms of single planets, single species, she explained during a colony council meeting. But we're building a network. Each world supports the others. If they find one of us, the rest survive. The communication network that Mykyung Lim had designed became the backbone of human expansion. Quantum relays allowed instant coordination between colonies separated by hundreds of light years. Earth could guide expansion efforts while maintaining the illusion of complete compliance. By the end of the second year, humanity had 37 hidden colonies, the adapted humans of each. World had developed their own cultures, their own solutions to survival, but they all remembered Earth, and they all shared the same goal: to grow strong enough that the hegemony could never threaten them. Again, Dong Hyan had become the unofficial admiral of humanity's ghost fleet. His ships moved constantly between colonies, carrying supplies, people, and information. They had learned to navigate using quantum tunneling in ways that left no traces, no energy signatures that alien sensors could detect. The beautiful thing about the hegemony, he told his captains, is that they're bureaucrats. They filed their report about Earth being contained, and now they've moved on to other problems. As long as we don't do anything obvious, they won't. Look at this region of space again for decades. The colonies began specializing. New Bizan became a manufacturing center, producing ships and equipment. New Seoul focused on research, developing new technologies. New Jeju became a training center for scouts and explorers. Each world contributed to humanity's growing strength. Hayoung's greatest breakthrough came when she realized that bioadaptation could be inherited. Children born on adapted worlds were naturally suited to their environments without needing genetic therapy. Humanity was not just hiding from the hegemony, they were evolving beyond what the aliens thought possible. In a few generations, she predicted, we'll have humans who can survive in vacuum, humans who can breathe methane, humans who can see in any spectrum of light. We're not just one species anymore, we're becoming many species, all working together. Wu Jin brought reports from the edge of hegemony space. He had observed their fleets, their patrol patterns, their methods of controlling other species. The intelligence he gathered painted a picture of an empire that relied on fear more than actual strength. They're powerful, he reported, but they're also lazy. They haven't fought a real war in centuries. Most species surrender before any fighting starts. They're not prepared for an enemy that refuses to be found. As humanity's third year of secret expansion began, the colonies numbered in the hundreds. Millions of humans lived on worlds that hegemony didn't know existed. And still, Earth appeared to be a perfectly contained, perfectly compliant prisoner species. The greatest deception in galactic history was working perfectly. 50 years had passed since the first secret colony ships left Earth. Sujin Kang was now an old woman, her hair white and her face lined with years of hard work. But her eyes still sparkled with the same determination that had driven her to help establish New Bizan all those decades ago. She stood in the council chamber of New Seoul, looking at a holographic map that showed the incredible growth of human civilization. What had started as a few dozen desperate colonies had grown into a network of over 2,000 worlds, connected by quantum communication relays and protected by the largest stealth fleet in the galaxy. The monthly reports, announced Dai Hun Bei, placing a stack of data tablets on the conference table. He was second-generation human, born on New Daegu and raised under the red sun that his parents could never have survived. His adapted physiology made him stronger and faster than baseline humans, but he still carried the same stubborn human spirit. New Ondong colony reports successful bioadaptation of their third generation, Sujin read from the first tablet. Children born there can survive in pure methane atmosphere. New Ulsan has completed construction of their first quantum shipyard. New Gwangju discovered rich deposits of rare metals that will supply 50 other colonies. Leung Kim, the xenanthropologist, looked up from her own research. She had spent 30 years studying captured hegemony data, learning everything humanity could about their oppressors. The growth rate is actually accelerating, she said. We're establishing new colonies faster now than ever before? How is that possible? Asked Seung Ho Jang, the industrial coordinator who managed production across hundreds of worlds. We're already stretching our resources to supply existing settlements. Because we're not just copying Earth anymore, Jia Hun explained. Each world develops its own solutions, its own innovations. A discovery on New Bizan improves life on 50 other colonies. New technology from New Seoul helps establish colonies in environments we couldn't survive before. Sujin smiled. She remembered when establishing a single colony was considered a miracle. Now humanity was creating new worlds faster than the Hegemony could count them, even if they were looking. What about the Earth situation? She asked. The -EU and pulled up another display showing Sol System. Still perfectly contained as far as the hegemony knows. Earth maintains all the proper signals of a compliant species. Population stable, no space activity, no expansion attempts. Their bureaucrats filed the report decades ago and haven't bothered to check since. The deception was so complete that sometimes Sujin could hardly believe it herself. Earth appeared to be exactly what the hegemony wanted, a defeated species that had accepted containment rather than face extinction. Meanwhile, humanity had secretly become one of the largest civilizations in the galaxy. I've been analyzing hegemony? Patrol patterns, Jae-hun said, bringing up tactical displays. They follow the same routes they've used for centuries. They check on known trouble spots, investigate obvious expansions, but they never look for hidden settlements. Their procedures don't account for species that appear compliant while secretly growing. Sung-ho laughed. 50 years of freedom, and they still think we're prisoners on one world. That's not the most interesting part, Yun said quietly. I've been studying their historical records, the ones we captured from abandoned outposts. The hegemony has contained 847 species, but they've only had to pacify 12 of them. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. The others all surrendered without fighting? Sujin asked. Every single. 1. The hegemony's entire system is based on intimidation. They show up, demonstrate their power, make threats, and species give up. They've never had to deal with long-term resistance because resistance has always been immediate and obvious. Jae-hun leaned forward. You're saying they don't know how to fight a hidden war. I'm saying they don't even know hidden wars are possible. Look at their patrol patterns, their surveillance methods, their containment protocols. Everything is designed to watch for open rebellion, not secret expansion. Sung-ho pulled up industrial reports from across human space. We now have more manufacturing capacity than most hegemony member worlds. Our stealth ships outnumber their patrol fleets in this sector of the galaxy. If they discovered us tomorrow, we could actually fight back and win. Sujin asked, maybe, but more importantly, we could survive. Even if they destroyed half our colonies, the rest would continue. We're not dependent on any single world anymore, not even Earth. This was the moment Sujin had dreamed of for 50 years. Humanity was no longer hiding just to survive. They were strong enough to stand up to their oppressors. There's something else, the Yun said. I've been intercepting hegemony communications about other contained species. Some of them are asking questions. She displayed a map showing dozens of systems marked in yellow. These are species that have been contained for centuries, some for thousands of years. But lately, they've been sending messages to each other, sharing information about hegemony weaknesses. I think they're starting to wonder if containment is really necessary. You mean they might rebel? Jae-hun asked. I mean, they might join us. If they knew we existed, the implications were staggering. Humanity had assumed they were alone in their resistance. But if other species were questioning hegemony rule, if they could be convinced to work together. How many contained species are there? Sujin asked. 847, including us. That's billions of intelligent beings who have been forced to give up their dreams of exploring the stars. If even a fraction of them joined a rebellion. Sung-ho was already running calculations. We could coordinate simultaneous uprisings. Across the galaxy, the hegemony couldn't respond to that many threats at once. Wait, Sujin said, holding up her hand. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We've spent 50 years learning to hide. Starting a galactic war is completely different. Is it? Hun asked. We've already proven that the hegemony system has weaknesses. We've built a civilization they can't see, using technology they don't understand. Maybe it's time to show the galaxy that resistance is possible. The Yun brought up more data. I've identified 12 species that show signs of active discontent with containment. They're all relatively close to human space, within a few months' travel using our quantum drives. You want to make contact, Sujin realized. I want to give them hope. For centuries, these species have believed that the hegemony was too powerful to resist, but we've proven that's not true. If they saw what we've accomplished, continued for hours. Some argued that contact with other species was too dangerous, that it would expose humanity's secret expansion. Others insisted that the time for hiding was over, that humanity had a responsibility to share their knowledge with other oppressed civilizations. Finally, Sujin called for a vote. It was close, but the decision was made. Humanity would reach out to other contained species, carefully and secretly, to see if they were ready to join a resistance movement. We'll start with the closest species, Ahun said. The Corvani in the Vega sector. They've been contained for 200 years, but our intelligence suggests they still maintain some hidden technology. What if they betray us to the hegemony? Suho asked. Then we disappear again, Sujin replied. We've gotten very good at being invisible. But if they join us, if even one other species stands up to the hegemony alongside humanity, then the galaxy changes forever, the Yun finished as the meeting ended. Sujin looked out at the stars through the chamber's transparent walls. Somewhere out there, the hegemony continued their ancient routine of intimidation and control. They had no idea that their greatest threat was not a species that fought back, but a species that had learned to grow in the shadows. Humanity had spent 50 years becoming something the hegemony couldn't understand, a civilization that could survive anywhere, adapt to anything, and refuse to accept defeat. Now it was time to teach the galaxy that freedom was possible. Even after centuries of oppression, the hidden war was about to become visible. Dong Suan had never seen anything like the Corvani before. They were tall and thin, with skin that changed colors like oil on water and 4 arms that moved independently. But what struck him most was the fear in their large, dark eyes when his stealth ship appeared in their system. Please don't hurt us, the first Corvani message said in broken galactic standard. We follow containment protocols. We cause no trouble for hegemony. Dong Su was the grandson of the first colony ship captain, born on New Bizan and raised on stories of humanity's great escape. At 28, he was one of the best scouts in human space, trained to make contact with alien species without revealing too much about human capabilities. We're not from the hegemony, he transmitted back. We're humans. We want to help you. The silence lasted for almost an hour. Then a different voice responded, older and more cautious. Humans are extinct. Hegemony records show containment failure 70 years ago. Your species was pacified for non-compliance. Dongsu smiled. The deception had worked so well that even other contained species believed it. We're very much alive. Our containment failure was ... exaggerated. 3 Corvani ships approached his vessel, moving carefully. They were old designs, probably built centuries ago, when the Corvani still had freedom to explore. But they had been maintained well, hidden from hegemony inspections. You really survived? The older voice asked. How? The hegemony said you tried to expand beyond your system. They said you were eliminated for defying containment. We were smarter than they expected, Dongsu replied. We made them think we were destroyed while we secretly spread across the galaxy. We've been free for 70 years. The Corvani ships stopped moving entirely. Dongsu could imagine the shock among their crews. For 2 centuries, they had believed that resistance to the hegemony was impossible, that any species that tried to break containment would be wiped out. Prove it, the older voice demanded. Show us evidence of your survival. Dongsu had prepared for this moment. He transmitted data packets showing human colonies, population numbers, technological achievements. Nothing that would reveal specific locations or capabilities, but enough to prove that humanity had not only survived, but thrived. The response came quickly this time. By the ancient stars, you have thousands of worlds, millions of people. How did you hide from them for so long? Very carefully, Dongsu said. And we want to teach you how to do the same. Within days, Indyung Wang arrived with a small fleet of human ships. She was now Admiral of the Human Defense Force, an organization that officially didn't exist. Her ships carried diplomats, scientists, and enough military power to defend the Corvani system if the hegemony appeared. The first face-to-face meeting took place on a Corvani space station hidden in an asteroid field. The Corvani delegation was led by an ancient being named Kethvar, who had been alive when his species was first contained. 200 years, he said, his skin shifting through colors that Dongsu's translator said indicated deep sadness. 200 years we have lived as prisoners, believing we had no choice, and all this time you humans were free and growing. Byung-ho Shin, the intelligence operative who had spent decades studying hegemony operations, leaned forward. You're not the only ones. We've identified dozens of species showing signs of discontent. The hegemony's control isn't as absolute as they want everyone to believe. Kethvar's skin color shifted to what the translator called cautious hope. There are other species questioning containment? The Zilani in the Capella region have been secretly developing new technologies, In-young said. The Mortaki near the Galactic Rim have been asking too many questions about hegemony patrol schedules. Even some species that have been contained for thousands of years are starting to wonder if there might be alternatives. But the hegemony is too powerful, another Corvani said. Their fleets, their weapons, their surveillance systems are designed to fight conventional wars against conventional enemies, Byung-ho interrupted. They've never faced a resistance movement that operates in the shadows, that appears to comply while secretly growing stronger. Dongsu activated a holographic display showing hegemony patrol patterns. Look at their routes. They follow the same paths they've used for centuries. They check on known troublemakers, but they never look for hidden threats. Their entire system assumes that contained species will either obey or rebel openly. What are you proposing? Kethvar asked. In-young answered. An alliance. We share our stealth technology, our bioadaptation systems, our quantum communication networks. You help us contact other dissatisfied species. Together, we build a resistance movement that the hegemony can't see coming. The negotiations took weeks. The Corvani were cautious, scarred by centuries of oppression. But gradually they began to believe that freedom might be possible. We have hidden colonies too, Kethvar finally admitted. 7 worlds that the hegemony doesn't know about. We've been secretly expanding for 50 years, but we've been too afraid to grow quickly. 50 years? Dongsu was amazed. You've been doing the same thing we have? On a much smaller scale. We were terrified of discovery. Every new colony was a risk we could barely accept. But you you've built a civilization. How many worlds do you really control? In-young exchanged glances with her officers. This was classified information, but if they were going to build an alliance, some secrets had to be shared. Over 3,000 worlds, she said quietly, with more being established every month. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, one of the younger Corvani spoke. 3,000 worlds, and the hegemony has no idea you exist? None at all. As far as they know, humanity was pacified 70 years ago? Earth appears to be a dead world with no space activity? Their bureaucrats marked us as successfully eliminated and moved on to other problems. Kethvar's skin shifted through a rapid sequence of colors that the translator couldn't interpret. When he spoke, his voice was different, stronger. We will join your alliance, but we want to do more than just hide. We want to contact every contained species in this sector of the galaxy. We want to give them the same hope you've given us. That could be dangerous, Byung-ho warned. Every contact increases the risk of discovery. Living in fear for centuries is also dangerous, Kethvar replied. Our people have spent generations believing that freedom was impossible. If we can show them that humans broke free, that we can break free too, that dozens of species might break free together. Revolution, In-young said simply. Revolution, Kethvar agreed. Not violent uprising that the hegemony expects and knows how to crush. Silent revolution, invisible revolution, the kind that grows in the darkness until it's too large to stop. Over the following months, the alliance grew. The Corvani used their old trade networks to contact other species. Dong Su's scouts established quantum communication relays that allowed instant coordination across vast distances. Byung Ho's intelligence network mapped hegemony, weaknesses, and identified potential allies. Species that had been isolated for centuries suddenly learned that resistance was possible. The Hendry, contained for 800 years, had maintained a secret fleet of exploration ships. The Vorthak had developed quantum tunneling technology independently. The Silene had bio-adapted to survive on dozens of different world types, each species brought something unique to the growing alliance. Technologies the hegemony had never seen, strategies they had never encountered. Most importantly, hope that had been suppressed for generations. The hegemony's greatest weapon was making us believe we were alone, Kethvar observed during a strategy meeting. They contained each species separately, convinced us that resistance was hopeless, that we were the only ones who wanted freedom. But we were never alone, Dong Su replied. There were always others who dreamed of the stars. We just needed to find each other. By the end of the year, the alliance included 17 species across 12 sectors of the galaxy. Billions of beings who had lived as prisoners were learning that freedom was possible, and the hegemony still had no idea that anything had changed. The first sign of trouble came through the quantum communication network at exactly 1422, Galactic Standard Time. Chong Min Ru was in the command center of New Seoul when every screen in the room flashed red. Admiral Huang, priority emergency, the voice of Scout Captain Dong Su came through the speakers. His usual calm was gone, replaced by barely controlled panic. Hegemony fleet movement detected. Massive mobilization in the Vega sector. Inyang. Huang arrived at the command center within minutes, still putting on her uniform. As Admiral of the Human Defense Force, she had hoped this day would never come. But she had also spent years preparing for it. Report, she ordered. Changmin pulled up the tactical display. Red dots representing hegemony ships appeared across multiple star systems. There were hundreds of them, more military vessels than had been seen together in centuries. They know, he said simply. Somehow they found out about the alliance. How many ships? Inyang asked. Over 3,000 combat vessels, with more arriving every hour. They're targeting every system where we've made contact with allied species. It's not a patrol or an investigation. This is an extermination fleet. Yoonji Park burst into the room, her diplomatic robe still wrinkled from sleep. She had spent months building relationships with the allied species, learning their languages and customs. What about our allies? The Corvani, the Hendry, all the others? Kethvar's last message said they're preparing to fight, Changmin reported. But their fleets are small, designed for hiding, not warfare. They can't stand against this kind of firepower. Inyang studied the display. The hegemony fleet was larger than anything in recorded history. They were taking no chances this time. They intended to eliminate every trace of the Resistance Alliance. Options? She asked. We could run, Changmin said quietly. Use our stealth technology to evacuate as many people as possible. Find new hiding places in unexplored regions of the galaxy. And abandon our allies? Yunji asked angrily. Let the hegemony slaughter billions of beings because they dared to hope for freedom? We could fight, offered Haiwen Yang from the engineering station. She was the chief designer of humanity's most advanced weapon systems. Our technology is superior to theirs in many ways. Our quantum drives, our stealth systems, our adaptive weapons. Against 3,000 ships? Changmin shook his head. We have maybe 400 combat vessels total. It would be suicide. Inyang was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then she activated the galaxy-wide communication system. All human commanders, all allied species, this is Admiral Huang, emergency. Protocols are now in effect. The hegemony has discovered our alliance and is moving to destroy us. She paused, knowing that her next words would determine the fate of billions. We will not run, we will not hide. For 70 years, humanity has grown in the shadows. For centuries, our allies have endured oppression. Today, we stand in the light. Today, we fight for the freedom of every intelligent being in this galaxy. The response was immediate. Human fleets began moving from hidden bases across thousands of star systems. Allied species that had been contained for centuries launched ships that had been secret for generations. The galaxy's greatest rebellion was beginning, but the hegemony had advantages beyond numbers. Their ships were larger, their weapons more powerful, their crews experienced in warfare. The first battles were disasters for the Alliance. New Corvani colony destroyed, Changmin reported, his voice hollow. 3 million casualties. The Hendry defense fleet lasted less than 10 minutes against hegemony dreadnoughts. Concentrate our forces, In-Young ordered. We can't fight them ship to ship. We need to use our advantages, speed, stealth, and coordination. Anji was already working. She had been in contact with resistance cells throughout hegemony space, species that were supposedly loyal but secretly sympathetic to the Alliance. "'Cause the Mortaki fleet just declared independence. The Zelani are sabotaging hegemony supply lines. Even some of the member species are turning against them. Internal revolution, Shanmin realized. While they're focused on destroying us, their own empire is falling apart. The strategy became clear. The Alliance couldn't win through conventional warfare, but they could inspire others to rebel. Every battle, even the ones they lost, showed the galaxy that resistance was possible. High One's engineering teams worked frantically to adapt human technology for allied species. Quantum drives were installed on Corvani ships, giving them unprecedented mobility. Stealth systems helped Hendry vessels strike and disappear. Advanced weapons turned obsolete allied fleets into deadly opponents. The key is not to defeat them everywhere, In-Young explained to her commanders. It's to survive long enough to show the galaxy that they can be defeated anywhere. The battles raged across dozens of star systems. Human tactics confused hegemony commanders who had never faced guerrilla warfare on an interstellar scale. Allied fleets would appear without warning, strike hard, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive, but the costs were enormous. Entire colonies were destroyed, billions of beings died, and whole species faced extinction. The hegemony's response to rebellion was exactly what it had always been: complete annihilation. "We're losing too many people," Changmin said during a strategy meeting. "At this rate, we'll run out of ships before they do." "Numbers don't tell the whole story," Eunji replied. She had been monitoring communications across the galaxy. Every day, more species join the rebellion. The hegemony has to spread their forces thinner and thinner to deal with uprisings everywhere. The turning point came when Dongsu discovered something crucial. His scout ship had infiltrated a hegemony command center and accessed their military databases. "Their fleet is mostly automated," he reported. "These ships are controlled by central command systems, not individual crews. If we could disrupt their communications ... double quote, High-1 understood immediately. Quantum interference. We could use our communication network in reverse, jamming their signals instead of transmitting through them." "Would that work?" In-Young asked. "In theory? But we'd need to coordinate attacks on their command ships simultaneously across the entire galaxy. The timing would have to be perfect." It was the most ambitious military operation in galactic history. Human ships and allied fleets positioned themselves near hegemony command vessels in hundreds of star systems. At exactly the same moment, they would strike, using quantum interference to blind the enemy fleet. "All units, this is Admiral Huang," In-Young said when the time came. "Operation Freedom begins in 30 seconds. For humanity, for our allies, for every being who dreams of the stars." The attacks began simultaneously across the galaxy. Human stealth ships appeared next to hegemony command vessels and deployed quantum interference devices. Allied fleets struck at communication relays and control centers. For 17 minutes, the hegemony fleet was blind and mute. Thousands of automated ships drifted helplessly while their crews tried to re-establish control. It was enough. Allied forces destroyed or captured over 1,000 enemy vessels. More importantly, they proved the hegemony could be beaten. Status report. Young requested. Changmin's voice was filled with amazement. Hegemony fleets are retreating from 12 sectors. Member species are declaring independence in 37 systems. Even some of their core worlds are reporting rebellion. And our losses? Heavy, but acceptable. We're still in the fight. Yunji looked up from her communication console. Admiral, I'm receiving surrender messages from hegemony commanders in 6 different systems. They're asking for terms. For the first time in 12,000 years, the galactic hegemony was losing a war, and they didn't know how to stop it. Begin broadcasting on all frequencies, Young ordered. Tell every species in the galaxy that freedom is possible. Tell them that the age of containment is ending. Tell them that anyone who wants liberty need only reach out and take it. The war was far from over, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The galaxy would never be the same. Changmin Ru stood on the bridge of his flagship as it approached the hegemony capital world. 6 months had passed since the Great Rebellion began, and the once mighty empire was crumbling faster than anyone had believed possible. Sir, we're detecting massive evacuation ships leaving the planet, reported his sensor officer. It looks like the hegemony leadership is abandoning their homeworld. Changmin watched the fleeing vessels disappear into hyperspace. After 12,000 years of ruling the galaxy through fear, the hegemony's masters were running away rather than face the consequences of their actions. Any resistance from the planetary defenses? He asked. None, sir. Most of the defense stations are broadcasting surrender signals. The few that aren't have simply shut down. It was almost anticlimactic. Changmin had expected a final desperate battle for the hegemony capital. Instead, he found a world in chaos as the government that had oppressed the galaxy for millennia simply collapsed. Admiral Wang sends her congratulations, his communications officer announced. The last hegemony fleet has surrendered in the Rigel sector. Official resistance has ended. Changmin felt a strange mix of triumph and sadness. They had won, but at such a cost. Entire species had been wiped out during the war. Billions had died fighting for freedom they would never see on the planet. Below, Yunji Park was already at work. As the Alliance's chief diplomat, she had the impossible task of rebuilding galactic civilization from the ruins of an empire. The government building where she worked had once housed the hegemony's high command. Now it served as the temporary headquarters for something completely new. The Corvani delegation has arrived, her assistant announced. Kethvar wants to discuss representation in the new government, Unji smiled. The old Corvani had survived the war and become one of the strongest voices for reform. His species, contained for 2 centuries, now helped lead the effort to create a free galaxy. Send him in. And get me a status report on the species rehabilitation programs. Yujin Moon entered with a data tablet full of encouraging news. As coordinator of the rehabilitation programs, she was helping hundreds of species adjust to freedom after centuries of containment. The Zelani have established 30 new colonies in the past month, Yujin reported. The Hendry are sharing their exploration technology with 12 other species. Even some of the former hegemony member worlds are asking to join the development programs. Any problems? Some species don't know how to handle freedom. They've been controlled for so long that they're asking us to tell them what to do. We're having to teach them how to govern themselves. It was one of the unexpected challenges of victory. Many species had been contained for so long that they had forgotten how to make their own decisions. The hegemony system of total control had created generations of beings who had never known anything but obedience. Kethvar entered the office, his skin showing the calm blue colors that indicated contentment. Unji, my friend, I have news from the outer sectors. Good news, I hope. Very good. The Sileni have found traces of the fleeing hegemony leadership. They're heading toward the galactic rim, probably planning to regroup in unexplored space. Should we pursue them? Kethvar's skin shifted to thoughtful purple. That is what we came to discuss. Some species want to hunt down every hegemony survivor. Others believe we should focus on building the new government. Before Yunji could answer, another visitor arrived. Sang-Hoon Lee, the newly elected president of the Galactic Federation, looked tired but determined. Leading a government of hundreds of species was proving more difficult than fighting a war. "The vote is in," he announced. "The Federation Council has decided. We will not pursue the fleeing hegemony forces unless they attempt to return and threaten." "Free species. Are you sure that's wise?" Kethvar asked. "They could rebuild their strength and attack us again." "Perhaps," Sang-Hoon admitted. "But if we spend our energy hunting ghosts, we won't have time to build something better than what they destroyed." It was a difficult decision, but Unji agreed with it. The galaxy had spent too long focused on war and oppression. It was time to try something different. "What about the member species?" she asked. "The ones who supported the hegemony voluntarily?" "Case-by-case evaluation," Sang-Hoon replied. "Some were genuine collaborators who profited from oppression. Others were just afraid and thought they had no choice. We'll help the ones who want to change and isolate the ones who don't." Yujin looked up from her tablet. "Speaking of change, I have interesting news from Earth." Everyone turned to listen. Earth had remained hidden throughout the war, maintaining the illusion of being a dead world. But now that humanity's deception was revealed, the homeworld was free to rejoin Galactic civilization. "President Choi has announced that Earth will serve as the diplomatic center for the new Federation," Yujin said. "The planet that was once threatened with extinction is now the heart of galactic government." It seemed fitting. The world that had been condemned to eternal containment was now the symbol of freedom for every species in the galaxy. "There's something else," Yujin continued. "Deep space exploration teams have discovered something remarkable. The galaxy is much larger than the hegemony ever told us. There are entire sectors they never explored, whole regions they ignored because they were focused on controlling known civilizations." Kethvar's skin flashed bright yellow with excitement. "Unexplored space, new worlds to discover, millions of them. Maybe billions. The hegemony kept everyone contained in just a small fraction of the galaxy. There's so much more out there." Yunji felt a thrill of possibility. For the first time in 12,000 years, the galaxy had unlimited potential for growth and discovery. "And there's something even more interesting," Yujin added. "Some of these unexplored regions show signs of ancient civilizations. Species that might have existed before the hegemony rose to power." The implications were staggering. How many civilizations had been destroyed or driven into hiding over the millennia? How many species might still exist in the unknown regions, waiting to be found? "We'll need exploration fleets," Sang-Hoon said. "Ships to map the unknown territories and make contact with any survivors we find." "I know just the person to lead them," Anji said with a smile. 3 weeks later, Yung-Woo Cho stood on the bridge of the exploration ship New Horizon as it prepared to leave known space. He was young, barely 30, but he had inherited the exploratory spirit that had driven humanity to survive and thrive. "All systems ready, Captain," his navigation officer reported. "Course set for the Andromeda interface region." "Take us out," Yung-Woo ordered Dot as the ship jumped to quantum tunnel speed. Yung-Woo thought about the journey that had brought them here. 70 years ago, his people had been threatened with extinction for daring to dream of the stars. Now, they led a federation of free species into the infinite unknown. Behind them, the galaxy was healing. Former enemies worked together to build new civilizations. Species that had been prisoners were learning to be free. Worlds that had been forbidden were being colonized by beings who had waited centuries for the chance. The Galactic Federation was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems to solve, still species that struggled with the transition from oppression to liberty. But for the first time in 12,000 years, the galaxy had hope. "Captain," his communications officer called. "We're receiving a signal from an unknown source. The language is completely alien, but the mathematical patterns suggest intelligence." Yung-Woo smiled. "Set course for the signal source. Let's go make some new friends." The ship flew on into the darkness between stars, carrying the message that humanity had spent 70 years proving that freedom was possible, that hope could survive any oppression. and that the universe was vast enough for everyone to find their place among the stars. Behind them, the galaxy continued to grow and change, no longer constrained by ancient fears or the limitations of a dead empire. The age of containment was over. The age of infinite possibility had begun,